And go.
Hi, I'm Renee with the Kalkaska Conservation District.
And I'm Cailtin McSweeney-Steffes with Danu Farm.
And we're going to talk a little bit about permaculture on the farm and wildcrafting and things common weeds that you can find on the farm and how you can turn those into value-added products to sell in your farm store or just use on your own personal homestead as well.
And some of those things I have here in our store are our tinctures, which are the herbs that have been dried and then soaked in corn grain alcohol, which is a great preservation, so you can have the medicinal purposes year round, as well as some are in oils for topical applications, and even salves, which we make, which is also for topical, and that's a really nice one that we also put in beeswax and oils to help with skin and antibacterials.
Yeah, and a lot of the common ones that you use a lot are yarrow, plantain salve, and they're pretty common around in most yards and landscapes. So they're really handy to turn something that is a common weed or something that grows where you don't want it and make it into something useful for kind of medicinal and herbal reasons. One thing to be wary of though, if you don't know what it is, please don't pick it and use it. There are tons of apps and guidebooks. I've got a few guidebooks with me that I always have within reach or a short walk that you can reference. One of my favorite ones by far is this top one, the Edible and Medicinal Plants of the Great Lakes region. That it's pretty thorough. You can find out when it grows, other names it's called by, when it blooms, when it's best to harvest, and those sorts of things. And there's also a lot of Facebook groups and that out there that are dedicated towards permaculture and kind of wildcrafting and using those resources.
And there are also ones like Susan Weed is a great one, and she has a lot of recipes, and there are some other ones that are coming out for how to dry and cure and take care of, and different dosage amounts. Even like this time of year, elderberry is a really big one, how to make the syrups, and then how much dosage to use depending on how you're feeling. So that's always a really important one to pay attention and learn, not only how to use the herbs but how much to take. The nice thing with herbs is you can't really overdose on them. Your body, just like vitamin C, will naturally use what it needs and then eliminate the rest of it. But it's still nice to look up and see how much, like the tinctures, these are in alcohol. Some people can put them right in under their tongue and take the straight corn grain alcohol. I can't, it makes me cough. So I always like to put it in like my coffee, tea, let it steep out, and then enjoy it and enjoy the benefits. The salve is really nice. This saves us and our working farm hands with the yarrow and plantain and St. John's wort, which things like the St. John's wort are fun because if you take it internally, it helps with some benefits. If you take it topically, it helps and has totally different benefits. So it's nice to start learning the plants. And the big one too is I like to pick like one plant ally is what they're called a year, and learn about that. So learn everything I can about one, because sometimes it can be really overwhelming to jump in and say, all right, I'm going to learn everything. So pick one, get to know it, learn it, find it in your yard, and go from there.
Yeah, definitely one per year. A couple of years ago, I had the grand idea to learn one plant per week, and it sounded great in theory, terrible in practice because it was really hard to keep up with it because I wanted to learn about it, like read about it in a book, go out in nature, find it, take pictures, and commit it to memory, and that was really hard to keep up with. So definitely the one per year or per walk if we're out with friends or family. If we see a plant we don't know, we'll pluck a twig or flower and take it back and research it once I can get closer to the books. And that's been, yeah, one per year is pretty safe wisdom. So I think some of the things like the salves and these plants are right outside the farm store. So we're gonna take a quick walk and look at some of them in the landscape that you certainly could landscape with them up around, you know, your living space, or go search for them out in the wild depending on what you have. So let's go this way. And I know it's a little bright out, so pardon shadows. So some of them that we have in the landscape, probably the one that stands out most, this is mullein, M-U-L-L-E-I-N. I've also heard folks call it lamb's ear. It can get quite tall. This is probably about 4 feet high to me, and it gets these really velvety leaves. It's starting to die back now because we're in mid-September, so this is the plant's life cycle. And usually it has soft velvety leaves, and then here will be yellow flowers, and the whole stalk here will be full of yellow blooms. The bees seem to love it, and then it dries out into the seeds. And at this point in the year, Cailtin was telling me about using it as a candle and a wick, so you could cut it off and put it either into your own soy-based candles or whatever you make, or burn it as is for an extra light and porch. And then down lower is a rose bush, and they'll get rose hips on them. They should start to be showing soon if I keep out. Looks like maybe that might be the start of one. That going into the fall, they'll dry out, and you can use those in teas and just steep them like you would with any other loose leaf tea, and it'd be really high in vitamin C, and you can enjoy the medicinal benefits of it. Other great plants in the landscape, down on the other side of this shrub, especially for permaculture, is sunchoke, or Jerusalem artichoke, and they're these giant guys. They get super tall. I don't know if they're flowering yet. Just starting. I'll get like a little small sunflower on it, and they're a root vegetable, and it's been a while since I've had one, but it's kind of like a celery potato.
Yep, it's very potato, celery based. You can use it as a swap out for any type of potato dish. It's nice and starchy, and it has a really light flavor. It's a great winter storage, so these guys will leave and let bloom and be a late bloom for the bees to get any last pollen before, and then we won't dig these up until the ground starts to thaw again in February. So they winter over in the ground, which is really nice, and then it gives you that first spring kind of root vegetable to eat, and they sweeten up throughout the winter too.
And the other really great thing about the sunchokes especially is because they do get so tall. I mean, I'm 5 feet or so, and they're well towering above me, is depending on where you could use it as a good visual break or living hedgerow on the farm and do rose bushes or whatever other medicinal plants, and kind of use that as your backdrop to start permaculture operations on the farm. So we are also going to be here on September 17th to talk more about every other operations on the farm and learn more about what Danu is doing